us to the next interesting segment. Now, the thing about MYOB EXO, when I was talking to Simone, obviously we spoke about the product's been with us for a couple of decades and going strong. Nice with Murray's insights and Ken from Artec Stories, you can tell that, you know, there's plenty of life, and if you're happy with it, if it's stable, but more importantly, if you're happy with it, it's meeting your needs. Hey, look, there's no need to rush to the other, you know, the kit in the house. This one here is a MYOB Advanced, and a little bit different. Comes from a different background, really. This child, and a little bit younger than EXO and cloud-based. And whereas EXO's annual license fee, as you know, this is a monthly subscription, runs in a browser, very powerful in very many areas. And you know, like both, all products, they have their strengths and weaknesses. MYOB Advanced really is a terrific product. And when the time comes, if you are ready to lift your head up and have a look at what's ahead and what possibilities exist for the days after EXO, then this is a little sneak preview for you to have a look at MYOB Advanced. And if you do or are at that stage and have a look at this, again, just, you know, reach out to your consultancy and ask to have a look at this one. But it gives me also the greatest pleasure to bring in Nick Savage-Matey. Now, Nick's been working with this product for years. In fact, he trained probably a lot of the partner consultants and salespeople in the industry over the last few years inside MYOB himself. And these days is a sales consultant selling the product or helping sell the product. Over to you, Nick.
Thanks very much, Grant. Like Grant said, what I'm going to actually show you today is I'm going to take you through a brief kind of demonstration of MYOB Advanced. So as you can probably imagine, MYOB Advanced is a fairly extensive type system. So really, we're just kind of scratching the surface on what it can actually do. And what I would mention straight from the off is two of the kind of key elements to MYOB Advanced, its strengths are from an accounting perspective, it's very far reaching in terms of the general ledger structure, and that actually sits beneath all of the modules within the system and can handle very large businesses quite capably. But what I'm going to concentrate on for today's presentation is actually to do with the distribution, so like the inventory management within the system itself. So again, another one of its strengths, and it really is quite a good kind of system in terms of that. So what I'm going to be covering off is I'm going to be going through the stock items side of things and the stock classes. So stock classes are stock groups, but smarter stock groups. And we're going to be having a little look at warehouses and locations. And then I'm going to explain the sales and purchase workflows. And then I'll also touch on towards the end in terms of how you can actually utilize the replenishment within the system itself. So MYOB Advanced itself is a cloud-based SaaS solution, which means that you can access it from any time, from anywhere, via any device, and via any browser. As long as you've got an internet connection, then that should give you that level of access. That should be absolutely all fine. Now, the way it looks in terms of when you first log into it, it shows you what you need to see. So you can actually dictate what your users get to see and get to what modules they actually get to see. So from this kind of point of view, we've got a dashboard showing information that I need. And from on this left-hand side, we've got modules to show me what I need to do my day-to-day job with. Now, like I said before, I'm going to concentrate on these three areas here. So purchasing, inventory, and sales orders. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go into my inventory area first. Now, MYOB Advanced has stock items and non-stock items. So stock items are what you actually stock, whereas non-stock items can be things like labours, services, or items that you don't generally want to track in terms of the stocking side of things. So I'm just going to jump into the stock items themselves. And stock items, you can see that I have a list of my stock items to start off with. And one key kind of feature in terms of stock items is what we call the item class. If I just search for a stock item in particular, you can see here that this has the item class that relates to that stock item. Now, the reason I mentioned about this is because if I just drill into this stock item, an item class can actually dictate defaults for the stock item to start off with. So if I create a new stock item and add that stock class, it means that I can then load in certain defaults, but it means I can change things if I need to on the record itself. So it's kind of a default to start off with. Now, from the item class itself, you can set things like what kind of type it is. Importantly, MYOB Advanced has multiple valuation methods. So we have standard, average, FIFO, and specific. And really, from a EXO business point of view, FIFO is something that people have always asked about. And from a specific point of view, specific is if you are using serial tracked stock, then once you bring in a stock item, you can then track it individually on that serial number based on the cost itself. Now, as I mentioned as well, it does allow for lot tracking, batch tracking, so you can do those elements within the system. You've also got units of measure, so you can actually dictate what do I stock them in, what do I sell them in, and what do I purchase them in. And you can also add in extra elements, so you can add in extra types of measure and set up conversion factors. So when you're selling something, it will actually automatically convert based on that side of things. Now, the other things I just want to mention in terms of warehousing, so you can have multiple warehouses, and one thing just to note, when you're actually costing products, it costs it on a warehouse basis. So, for example, Melbourne may be cheaper than buying stock in for Canberra. You can actually do it based on that side of things. And also, what I should mention as well is for stock classes, you actually have what we call attributes, and attributes can be extra fields. For example, if I just find in a next extra product, and I pick up this one here, you can see from the attribute point of view, it actually allows you to have extra fields based on the stock class itself. In this case, we have color, we have size, and we have different attributes relating to the actual stock class. So you can see that that's where the smart kind of elements come into play itself. Now, from a warehousing point of view, if I just drill directly into a warehouse, the warehouses allow you to actually set up different settings. So in fact, if I just jump back to general there, so from the warehouse point of view, you can specify on a stock item what warehouse is going to be the default, but you can actually set up the warehouses. So you can have multiple warehouses. You can link it to branches, and below you've actually got the ability to set up multiple locations. So these locations allow you to then say that I've got multiple bin locations, or it might even be areas like loading bays. And that means that when you're stocking things, you can stock it in multiple locations. You're not just limited to a single location per se. Now, you can also, from these locations, set up whether or not you want them available in the availability calculation. So how much stock do I actually ship? I don't want these areas brought into that calculation, and whether sales and receipts are brought into that as well. Now, from a GL account point of view, you can track it based on a warehouse. You can actually say, I want this warehouse to be this stock on hand account, and I want another warehouse to be a different stock on hand account. And you've also got, as I mentioned before, you've got sub-account structures, so those extra level of dimensions. And that means that you can then say that this is New South Wales or Victoria, and it just spreads out that element in terms of your financial reporting. Now, as I mentioned as well, you do have the ability to set up different warehouse defaults on the main stock item, or if you're on a stock code, you can actually set them up per warehouse as well if you need to be. Now, from the sales order process point of view, The sales orders works upon a basis of what we call order types. And order types dictate the process and flow in terms of how we're actually ordering things and how we're going through that process. So for example, if I pick on this sales order or order type of SO, for example, this is kind of your normal order where we create an order, we put in which warehouse, we then create shipment, and then once we create that shipment, we can create our picking slip, and then we can confirm the shipment and generate our invoice and go through that process. So more of a full shipping capability. But if I just go into, say, for example, a cash sale can actually allow me to, because I'm, may have a retail store or something like that, or just a shop front underneath the warehouse. So it means that I can go into here and I can actually put in my warehouse and my location, and I can simply just see, based on my locations, my stock. And then from here, I can actually then go under financial, take a payment. So I can actually take that payment. And up the top, instead of creating a shipment now, I can just prepare an invoice and then give it to the customer, give the stock to the customer, and I've taken the payment. Now, like I said, the order types themselves, you can see there are different order types, and you can manipulate these to suit what you need. And you can even manipulate up the top what gets seen and what process goes through. So for example, with a cash sale, we can have quick process, and we can do it via that. And you can see in here as well that we also have a returns element. We got returns within the system as well. Now, from a processing point of view, you can obviously process a shipment singularly, or if you need to, you can actually use these processes areas, which really is a key kind of element of MYOB Advanced. And from that point of view, it means that I can go into here and go create shipments. And if I wanted to, I could just create shipment for a certain warehouse, or I could even create shipment for a certain customer, for example. So if I pick out this customer, it means that I can go in and generate these and process all of them, or process one or two at a time and generate a single shipment and a single invoice. But the beauty of this is we can actually add in an element at the top, which if I click on automation, I can actually automate this to run behind the scenes for me. So at the end of the day, I can actually get that to go through and do it at 4 o'clock, and then I can set and forget, and all of that runs behind the scenes. And so that means that if I'm doing my processing of shipments, generating pick slips, things like that, I can just automate those features automatically. Now, from a purchasing point of view, the purchase orders elements. So again, like I said, you can generate single purchase orders just on the fly. You can generate purchase orders if you are within a sales order. You can put purchase to order. You can generate purchase orders from intercompany. So for example, here you can see this is Perth, and they're actually one of my branches, but they're actually a supplier. And if I generate a purchase order to them, what then happens is, if I look at my generating intercompany sales orders, it actually goes, here's a purchase order, and I'm going to load that in as a sales order into that branch. A really powerful intercompany integration. And once they create a shipment, it'll then create a purchase receipt for you. And if they create an invoice, it creates a bill for you in the subsequent system as well. Now, the other element in terms of replenishment, which also ties into the area for purchasing. So we have a replenishment system in place, and the replenishment system is utilized for two things: one, to replenish, and two, to suggest replenishment settings ahead of that fact. Now, if I just go in and pick out my Melbourne warehouse, you can see in here that we've got, these are my suggested elements, and you can see here that this is suggested based on reorder values or minimum maximums. And if I just drill directly into this stock item, on a stock item itself, you can actually then set up some things like, what method are you going to use? So in this case, we're going to use transfer for Canberra. We actually get the stock directly from Melbourne, whereas the other one, we have preferred suppliers, and we can set up certain things like, units and measures and items and limits based on that. Then you can see from a Canberra point of view, if I just jump to Canberra, you can now see that we've actually got this item here, and you can see it's a transfer replenishment source for that point of view. Now, that then flows into an area called Create Purchase Orders, and this is really kind of a repository for all of those things that are flowing through. So you can see I've got my replenishment, I've got my sales order to purchase, and from there I can again process all, or I can automate that and generate purchase orders within the system and then send that out from there. Now, from a receipting point of view as well, just a couple of things to note, especially from an EXO perspective. You can receipt ahead of selling, so you can actually receipt it and sell it, and you don't have to wait for the bill. You can also create bills for the supplier ahead of receipting as well. You can bring the bill in and then do that prepayment to your supplier and pay them up front. So it's really quite powerful in terms of the functionality and very flexible. Now, the last thing really to kind of point out from this point of view is, I suppose, the reporting. Now, the reporting within the system is, there's different methods. And what I would say is, from a reporting perspective, you have a similar kind of reporting tool like Clarity, which will give you those kind of, print off or, email capability kind of style reports. But what you tend to find is that people more want grid-based reports. And those grid-based reports, as we saw before on the stock items screen, they actually can be flowed into dashboards. And each of these dashboards can then represent really useful information that you need to see. So what do we need to ship? What do we need to receipt? What's our inventory sales history? And we can also push that out via OData into things like different reporting tools, as we've seen in terms of Focus, but also we can push this into the app itself. So, like I said, it's a fairly capable system in terms of distribution, but it's a very hard thing to show in 15 minutes, as you can probably understand, because it's really scratching the surface of what is within MYOB Advanced. So what I'll do now is I'll pass back to Grant, and I think the question and answer session is coming up next.